I've just had barriers and barriers and barriers, and work takes over, and so yeah, it's been a real struggle for me as a filmmaker in the entertainment space, right? And then AI came into the picture, So about 2 years ago is when I started dabbling with AI, and then there were these ideas that were half finished. I might have a story outline, or I might have a half finished script, and I could take that to an LLM tool and say, "Hey, here's my idea. I'm halfway there, but this is the kind of direction I'm going in. Can you talk to me about what direction I can possibly go in?"
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the FUTR Included podcast. Today I am joined by Ikenna Mokwe. Ikenna, welcome.
Welcome. I mean, why am I saying welcome? I mean, hello.
Thank you for coming, man. I'm really interested to unpack your story and speak about all the things that you're doing within the film industry. So you're the founder. Ikenna is the founder of OnGen, which is an AI native film studio using technology to tell stories. Ikenna, let the audience know who you are and what you do.
Cool. First, let me just introduce OnGen. So, just like you said, it's an AI-first film studio. We make films for brands, so one-off content and series for brands, and we also develop our own original IP. And when I say AI native, what I mean is that we incorporate AI into every single phase, all the way from lead generation through to production, pre-production, production, and post-production. Very human-led, but we use it throughout. My background is traditional filmmaking, so for the past 15 years, I've been primarily working in the B2B space, making adverts, TV commercials, and yeah.
Okay. I found you online. I was just scrolling through as everyone does and kind of saw some of the visuals that you were putting out, and I was taken aback, and so that's what caught my eye and attention. So we didn't know each other until 3 weeks ago, and I just basically sent you a message to understand more about what you do. Really, I'm really inquisitive and this fast moving space of AI video. But obviously, you were in this space way before getting involved in AI and those film tools. Just give the audience a bit of a background in terms of what you've done historically up until this point.
Okay, historically, let me go. I'll rewind back to literally after at college. I studied maths, physics, media studies, and art, and I did not know what direction I wanted to go in. And when it came to filling out your UCAS form, I had no idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided I'm not going to uni, but I can start up a business. I applied for a business grant for Princess Trust and managed. I won it. Got I think it was a $5,000 grant. Entered the business plan competition. Won $8,000, and then started up a graphic design business. So I bought myself a Mac. Top of the line, and then started a graphic design business, and it was customized greeting cards that I was doing all the way back then. So graphic design was
using
customized greeting cards.
Greeting cards, okay.
Yeah, so this is way back, so graphic design was my thing, and then I was designing flyers. And back in those times, I wasn't a photographer, so I would download these low quality images from the internet and then just manipulate them and create these flyers, right? And that piqued my interest in photography, so I dabbled in photography. So then I'll take my own original photographs and then put them into my flyers. And then I thought, what if these photographs could move? And then I started exploring motion graphics, and I thought, okay, my photography is okay, but how about lighting? And then I started exploring cinematography. And then it all came together in directing. And while I was doing this, exploring this journey, I was often bringing other people's stories to life. So I did a lot of B2B stuff, and they would already have a concept or an idea, and they needed somebody to capture it or to interpret it. So as you can see, that journey, it started off with a still image and evolved into a moving image. And then I've always been interested in writing and trying to tell my own story, but I've really struggled with finding my own voice. So as I said, when it comes to telling other people's stories, I'm game. So I've just been on this journey to find my voice. And I've been writing little ideas and trying to make little concept films, or just getting my idea out of my head, but I've just had barriers and barriers and barriers, and work takes over, and so yeah, it's been a real struggle for me as as a filmmaker in the entertainment space, right? And then AI came into the picture, you know. So about 2 years ago is when I started dabbling with AI, and then there were these ideas that were half finished. You know, I might have a story outline, or I might have a half finished script, and I could take that to an LLM tool
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, here's my idea. I'm halfway there, but this is the kind of direction I'm going in. Can you talk to me about what direction I can possibly go in?"
Yeah.
Right? It's the equivalent of, you know, I mean, obviously it's not a human, but it's for me. All I needed was a partner to bounce it
It's that
off of,
co-pilot, right?
just a co-pilot, you know,
Yeah.
and that made me finish things, you know. So it made me complete things, and that just completely gave me energy to focus on my own content. So the reason OnGen came about was that so I've been freelance for the majority of my life, and then within the last 5 years, I started working for a PR agency, and in the last year and a half, I was leading their AI film offering, and then I started putting out my own personal content, and then my LinkedIn inbox just started popping, my Instagram started popping off, and it's because I started creating content where it was my stories, you know, it was my voice coming through on those pieces of content, so people were offering me new business, and I couldn't juggle both things. So I thought, all right, let me start this agency, which is AI first, and just start doing my own thing and explore. And since, you know, it's probably been about 4 months now that I started, and that one video that I put out in July is still bringing in work till today, you know, and I've literally only put about 3 or 4 pieces of content out, and till today they're still generating, you know, leads and bringing in work. Incredible. Which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So let's just go back actually. So shout out to Prince's Trust as well. I know a lot of people that are kind of like recipient of that kind of like fund and grants that they were kind of like giving out. And it sounds like it was a catalyst for you to enable you to buy that equipment right early on, and how beneficial that was for you. Explain like the process that you were going through to make content back then as well, like up until the point that you founded OnGen, and like we're going to get back onto all the AI tools and software that you're kind of like leveraging now. But like, what was that process back then? Explain out how expensive it was, or kind of like cumbersome, and what hurdles that were faced by the pre kind of like video creation process.
So the traditional process is very much the same as the AI process actually, but you come up with an idea. If we're talking about the B2B space, which is where I've traditionally been in, you come up with an idea. You develop it into some kind of script, and then you go and make it. And by making it, I mean, yes, you organize a shoot, which involves, you know, getting crew together, and then you take it into post-production where you edit it. So that's the traditional cycle in the B2B space with the type of content that I was generally making for the past, 10, 15 years. But the process of making entertainment content is different, especially, you know, if you're an independent, is similar but different.
Sure.
So the idea phase, yes, you know, we have that idea. You come up with your idea, and then next you need to write a script. So writing a script, that's a challenge in itself. First of all, turning your idea into a script, right? So that's challenge number one. Some people just fail at that. They give up at that phase. But then once you have a script, then you have to pitch that script. Unless you are privileged enough to have money to just go and make your film, you have to pitch that script to somebody to give you money to make your film. Yeah. And then that is a huge barrier in itself as well, because you know there are thousands of people who are trying to get funding to make their films, and if you are pitching to a studio, like production companies have the same problem as independents, like when it comes to pitching, like not much gets greenlit, and often you have to have a star attached to it. There's just loads to it, right? And then if you do get money to make that film, then you have to actually make that film, right? Now, throughout this whole process, you might end up at the end of this journey with a film and realize that you're actually terrible at certain things, right? You know, each time you make a film, you learn something about yourself, right? You might realize that actually I'm more of a director than I'm a writer, or actually that scene was my favorite scene, and that scene took from this type of genre, so actually I prefer writing this kind of genre. Now, this whole process of pitching and writing can take some people 5 years, some people 10 years. Literally, it's a cycle, and then you have to go and do it again and make the next film, right? So there are so many barriers along the way, and if you want to do it by yourself as well, so if you decide, okay, I'm going to do this myself, I'm going to pull together a crew, I'm going to pull together friends and family to help. I'm going to all the people who filmmakers or cinematographers or editors. I'm going to see who I can pull in. It's great, but people are unreliable when you're not paying them.
Yeah.
You know, I have a friend who was recently making this film, and one of the crew members pulled out like about 5 days before this guy was about to make his film, and he's invested his personal money into it, and this person said another job came along, so they have to take it, and that is so disheartening. It's when you've done that. So yeah, so that's the traditional process, and it can be very expensive. Very expensive. So for instance, in the B2B space, if you're making a 1 minute ad that where you travel to several different locations, you can easily spend $1,000 or $100,000 or over.
Yeah. So I was going to get to that point as well. Actually, that differentiation. It's good that you made that B2B and the entertainment, like the differences, and obviously filmmaking, entertainment, and like that B2B is more kind of like commercial driven or advertising of a product. Mm-hmm. We interview a lot of startup founders. They want to make their B2B videos. Old process, very cost intensive, right? Labor intensive, etc. And you've had exposure to that 6-figure kind of like budgets that get those things over the line, and that is a massive barrier for a lot of early stage founders that might be building in the e-com space, for example. Mm-hmm. How do you now see that kind of like barrier lowering based on the adoption of tools and what you're doing in the industry as well?
It lowers humongously because you can cut out so much, right? It's up to you. If you want to include like a big crew of people, you want a lot of people involved in it, then sure, you can do that. But what it does is it essentially you can slash 50% of your budget off, right? So while I was at the agency, again, a $100,000 production budget, the margins for that were just slim, and that's because you would pay a lot of money would go to crew, locations, everything would take the money out of it, and what the production company is left with is a tiny margin, right? So for founders and people without much budget, you can cut out the loads of that process, right? If you have a hands-on director or a creative director, you can create some amazing things, right, with it. And I think you can be efficient at every single part of the creation process. So all the way from the idea generation, you can have your creative director take on so much more, achieve a lot more, shall I say, with the help of AI. And then when it comes to the actual production process as well, you can literally have a one-man or one-woman band who is creating those assets, who's generating the keyframes, who's generating the clips. And then if you want to pass that on to an editor, you can. Or if you want to separate those roles, I mean, it's so much cheaper.
Okay, that's a really good point that you kind of like you mentioned just there. That location piece, I think, is a massive one in terms of that cost, and I think I've heard that from a lot of filmmakers in terms of like them leveraging AI. I think there's these scenes of like these Western videos where there's like horses involved and they're in the Grand Canyon and all that kind of stuff, and like the filmmaker's argument towards using AI is because they would never be able to recreate those specific scenes, and even if they did shoot those scenes, if it does require an edit, it's like high budget, movie studios were doing in Hollywood, etc. They just go back to that location and just recreate it, etc. But now in AI, they can actually just recreate that scene or just add the simple edit that they need to within a few minutes. The big point of kind of like contention right now in the industry is that crew. So you mentioned crew, location. What happens to crew in terms of like their earnings? Do they have to reskill, look for alternative kind of like opportunities in film? Like, what's your opinion around that?
I mean, there's still a lot of things that AI can't do. So crew are still very much required. But I think that everybody everywhere is going to have to definitely expand their skill set. People, are going to have to expand their skill set. I think like some people who, I think if your skill is very button pushy and technical, and there's no brain or required to do it, which sounds so bad, then I think technology might, put your job at risk. But I don't know. There's so much that AI can't do. There's so much that it can't do.
Yeah, a lot of the time in the tech, 'cause I work in the tech sector, and kind of it's the monotonous task, right, which currently right now is ideal for the AI, right, in terms of, like, if you think about the legal system, where they're kind of like, you've got, early entrants that are just sifting through like realms of paper and kind of like just organizing files, for example. That is literally a task for, an AI agent currently right now. And we do see the benefits for that, because people could be upskilled into different areas, as you kind of like mentioned. Let's talk about OnGen, and the real crux of kind of like why I wanted to interview you, and what you've done in terms of transition, not just from doing B2B, but like more storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, give the audience example. There's a lot of, people that are at home now playing with tools. How did you come to founding OnGen? And like, what is the kind of some of the work that you're doing in that space as well?
Yeah. So I was at the agency, which I won't name, for 5 years, and we started getting some AI work in. I started developing my own personal content, and OnGen came because while I was doing my own content, I just enjoyed it so much more. Like the freedom to just create whatever I wanted to do, and also the starting point of the narrative was from my heart. And whereas the in the B2B world, there's so many obstacles and so many different people. It's like creativity by committee, that whole thing, that takes place over there. So that's the reason why I thought, okay, you know what, let me just do my own thing and let me find my own voice, and while I'm doing it, let me make money, right? So OnGen it allows me to explore both technology and creativity. So when it comes to technology, along my journey, I dabbled with coding. And nowadays, if you are somebody who is a no-code developer or low-code developer, it's amazing, right? So right now I'm using Claude Code to help me develop these apps for the company. And
what
so
kind of apps are you doing?
So it's apps that allow apps that interact with every stage of the filmmaking process. Okay. So I'll have a script and I need it broken down into shots, for instance. There are processes that I go through when I'm breaking down a script, and all I've done is said, hey, this is what I normally do. Could you do it for me? There are when I'm writing my prompts. It's quite systemized, and I've given it to AI and say, this is what I always do. I'll give you this top line, and these are my reference images. Could you create this keyframe? All the way to generating the actual clips itself. So I'm developing a lot of that, the tools that will help me get something from idea all the way to execution. So experimenting with that. So it's the company is allowing me to do that. So play with technology, and then also be creative at the same time. So tell these amazing creative stories. So for instance, that's something that we worked on recently is called the 1900s, the late 1900s, and it's a series that I'm developing, and the way that this idea came about was I'm quite nostalgic about the 90s, and my daughter said to me, Daddy, what did you guys do for fun in the late 1900s? Like, in the olden days, in the late 1900s, and that just like I couldn't breathe when she said that. Made me feel so old. But that inspired me creating this series, which is quite nostalgic about 90s, a story about 90s, and it's a story about some 3 kids who go on a journey to get an Argos catalogue. And to create a wish list and get their Christmas presents. So that's the origin of the story. I mean, the season is not all about that. Sure. It's more about 90s. But it's allowed me to experiment with that, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Trying to pitch that idea to somebody, like, nobody's going to buy that idea, but I created it. I created a teaser for it. I put that online, and It's nearly got 100,000 views on TikTok. LinkedIn has got some great engagement, and yeah, it's got me new business as well. You know,
Interesting. That was the clip that I saw actually online that captivated me as well. Hopefully you do one on the Littlewoods catalogue coming through the door, because that was the one early one for me in terms of e-com. Now that comparison, like my daughter asked me the same question. It's kind of like, how did you buy things? And I was like, I used to mark things off in the Littlewoods catalogue and then wait 6 months before you could kind of get it right. Different times. You just covered a bunch of points there in terms of, you're always speaking about creativity, always, every time you're speaking about technology, and that's I think a really, really key point in terms of this conversation, because there's the opposing argument about technology just overriding creativity, right? And at its core, every time I speak to a filmmaker or anyone in the creative arts, they always maintain that element of creativity will be there, right? In terms of content being king and it resonating with people, and regardless of the tool that you use, you still have to be creative, like within that.
yeah.
Let's just go back in terms of, you mentioned a few tools there. For people that are just getting started, or just kind of like, maybe they're creative and they don't really know, kind of, they might be dabbling with a few tools. Like, how did you get started? You mentioned you're building apps now. There's no code options as well. Like, what would your advice be for just an upcoming, or an experienced even filmmaker that's not, so close to technology? Like, what would your advice be for them?
I think probably the easiest tool to use is Google AI Studio if you are just beginning and you want to experiment with creating some tools. Google AI Studio, you can build web-based apps using their tools in it, and it pulls into anything within Google's ecosystem. It can pull from it. So it's got, if you're a filmmaker and you're exploring AI, the typical workflow in that space is you create a keyframe, and then you turn that keyframe into a clip. And then now you have a shot, and then you can kind of edit that using traditional filmmaking. So Google have got a video model, an image model called Google Nano Banana, which is quite amazing, which allows you to create images, and it allows you to edit images as well. And then they've also got a video model that's called VO 3.1, which turns either images into video, or you can just prompt it with a text prompt, and it will create a video for you. And if you're using Google AI Studio, you can tap into those tools. So if you wanted to develop an app that generates keyframes with a certain style, and then turn those into videos, for instance, you could go and speak to Google AI Studio using natural language, and then you can iterate on the app within, so it's a chat-based interface that you can iterate with on. And if you're a bit more deeper into developing, you can also kind of play around with some of the code there. So that's if you're starting, but other tools are, Claude Code I'm finding amazing.
And why have you chosen to use Claude Code to develop your apps? Like, what's the...
So
I think this is another thing. It's kind of like, there's a bunch of tools with OpenAI, and there's kind of, Google tools, etc. Like, why Claude for you specifically?
Because of the access to your local system. So being able to develop on my system, I just find that super powerful, And
when you say local system, what are you referring to? All of the, like, the software that you have on your own device, right?
Exactly. So I work on a Mac, and there are NPCs. If you don't know what NPCs are, essentially AI can speak to different tools. So and what Claude Code can do is, if you give it access to an NPC server, it can speak to certain tools. Like, so for instance, your web browser, right? So if you are developing a web app, for instance, you can develop it on your local system, and you can test it on your local system as well. So you can have Claude Code create it, and you can give it a brief of what you want to create. It will come up with a plan. It will download all the code base that you need in order to develop this app, and then it can also open your Google web browser and then test it, and you can literally watch it as it's testing and iterating and writing down what its thoughts. So
nice. Okay. Yeah, good insight there. Just in terms of that, I've played around. Another question that comes up quite a bit as well. I played around with like Kling. Is that like a lot of the tools have kind of, I'm sure you've got the answer to this, is that a lot of the tools have kind of got their 6 second limits or 9 second limits. And how do you create that synergy when you created the Argos like themed story as well, between like keyframe 1 to 6 seconds, 7 to 9, etc.? Like, how do you stitch them all together and make sure that all of the colors and themes are basically in sequence?
Yeah. So it's with consistency is one of the biggest problems actually
Yeah.
with AI, and it's just but prompting in a consistent way
Okay.
across tools. So and then also referencing previous images. So for instance, if I created a shot of a character from from this angle,
Yeah.
I would use that image that I've just created as a reference to
Yeah.
create the next image. So that can help with consistency. But I mean, the way I made 1900s, I used literally every single video model or every image generation model out there. I was experimenting. I was trying to push everything to its edge, and there are the on some platforms you can create up to a minute, in fact, or length. Now it's changed, but obviously as you get longer into the clip, then things start getting distorted, right?
Yeah.
But for what I was creating, I didn't need anything longer than 6 seconds. So most of the time I'd either be generating 6 second clips or 10 second clips that all I needed was the 6 seconds. So often I might generate a 10 second clip and all I need is 6 seconds.
Okay.
And I think consistency comes from keeping prompts consistent, and also referencing in specific ways.
I think that's the big thing. Have you found instances where you're prompting similar, you're referencing, that previous clip, and it's still kind of like coming out different? So like, I don't know, the colour of the eye might be slightly different, or like the ear shape, or whatever it is. Like, how do you address those? I know we're getting a bit deep into.
No, we can get the dude. I can talk about this.
That question, and also kind of like what you're using to timeline and edit as well in relation to that. Do any of these tools have a built-in timeline similar to like Premiere or Final Cut?
Do any of them have a built? Yes. So FreePic has a timeline.
FreePic. Okay.
Within it. But I prefer not to, and also CapCut as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them you have to use. A lot of the ones that have a timeline built in, you have to use their video models.
Okay.
Whereas I prefer to have access to everything, right?
Yeah.
But FreePic is actually amazing because it's an aggregator of all the models, and then it has a video editor built within it as well. But I don't know, if you're trying to layer things in the way that I layered, if you see the timeline from the 1900s, it's like it's huge. So you still want to go into your DaVinci or your Premiere Pro. So I still edited in those systems.
So you're exporting to those systems essentially.
Exactly. So my workflow is very much your traditional workflow.
Okay, so you're kind of like open to it. You're not locked down to any specific tools. Like, it sounds like you're super agnostic. And this is a time for trialing, right? In terms of like looking at which movie models are you using.
So in terms of video models,
video models, yeah.
My top, I would say, are Google VO 3.1. I also love Kling is amazing. Kling is fantastic. So those are my two top, right? But then I also like using C-Dance, which is ByteDance's model.
C-Dance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, ByteDance's model is amazing. And I also love Hailuo, which is a Chinese model as well. So each of these video models, they have their own special, they have their strengths, Oh, Luma's another one. That's great as well. And so, for instance, VO3 was one of the first tools that you could get your characters to speak.
Yeah.
And nobody else was doing it. Google VO were doing it. Other people tried, and it just wasn't as good. So it's really good when it comes to your character speaking. And then Kling have just now introduced AI native into their model as well, and it's pretty good as well. And then so other tools might be good at dynamic movement, for instance. So like there are some shots in the late 1900s, where I needed fast action with fire, and I found Luma was amazing for that.
Okay, so this is interesting. So you actually, within that 1900s, you're actually using multiple film models like
Yeah.
within that.
Yeah.
And the actual the prompts that you're using and the references were applicable in the other models as well.
Absolutely.
Actually, I'm quite surprised about that. I thought you'd literally just stay within the same model just because of the risks of, I don't know, just like the differences between the output.
The thing is, okay, if you are trying to, create something for the silver screen, then yes, you will pick up, if you're a perfectionist, you'll pick up on that the pixels look this way or the film grain looks X, Y, Z on that way, but then on this it looks slightly different. You will pick up on it, right?
Yeah.
However, I have thrown that away. I've just said to myself, listen, this is imperfect, all right? This is an experiment. Like, you're going for story and completing this over it looking pristine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have to use all the models because they don't all do everything. There'll be times where certain models, when I speak, when I say push in, give it direction, director, instead of saying zoom, the director might say push in. It will do exactly what I need it to do. Whereas other tools, when I'm trying to speak in a certain way, it just won't translate it in the same way.
Okay.
So
a lot of those traditional director directions that you're giving, some of the tools understand it better than the others, right?
Absolutely.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. Are there kind of like filmmaker modes within these tools as well?
No, you see, these tools are, I don't know, there are the tools, some tools are starting to appeal more to filmmakers, right? But I would say that a lot of the tools are, geared towards consumers, and the people who are making tools that are geared towards filmmakers, they are, some of them aren't out yet.
Okay.
But no, there's no. All right, I mean, Higgsfield, for instance, the platform Higgsfield you spoke about, that is creating tools that are geared towards filmmakers. So, for instance, on Higgsfield, they've got this cinema studio tool where you can choose your camera body, you can choose your camera lens, and you can customize the system, and then it generates your keyframe that looks very similar to an Arri, 35mm camera with a 24mm lens or whatever it is. And then you can turn that keyframe that you've created into a video. So I mean, yeah, Higgsfield does that. But there are. I'm a beta tester for a lot of these tools and a creative partner. So I'm testing out some of their systems, and I don't know. I feel like a lot of them are appealing to creative studios more than film studios, because film studios, they need a lot more control, and they just work in a different way, So what I'm seeing is that there are studios who are just tapping into the APIs and creating their own tools because it can do exactly what they what they need to do when they create their own tools.
That's super interesting, and kind of like on that topic as well. I'm just trying to think of a lot of these companies that Google not, because obviously it's Google and it's a holdco under Alphabet. It's been around for a long time, and obviously they've been building AI models for a number of years. A lot of the other newer kind of like startups that are kind of like enter in the field, Higgsfield, etc., that you just mentioned, obviously innovating, and they're probably a bit more nimble to create specialist features for the specific use case. What are the traditional incumbents doing what you've seen, like Final Cut and Adobe? Like, have you seen them innovating much? It feels like it's a big opportunity for.
Yeah, so Adobe are their angle at first was to think about ethical AI. So they took that angle. Although I'm saying that, and I'm just remembering that when they changed their terms and conditions to say that they can train on people's work. But Adobe, I
do remember that. I do remember that. Yeah, there was a bit of an uproar last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But Adobe have been, just a bit slower. Although the Firefly product that they create is powerful, it's not as good as the other models. Some of the other models, and they've changed their approach now. So now through Adobe's tools, you can access those models. So they are making themselves a bit of an aggregator of these tools. In terms of people like Final Cut or Apple, Apple, I don't know. They're their story or their approach, we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Like I know something's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, they've recently collaborated with Google. You know, but when it comes to the creative space, and they've given us tiny peeks of their vision model. But I don't know. I feel like the big traditional people aren't doing loads. In fact, Da Vinci Resolve Art are doing some bits actually incorporating AI into their stuff. Yeah, Adobe's they're doing big things, right?
Yeah. They're just a bit slower moving than
They are.
some of the others that you mentioned.
They appear
right?
to be. They do have some amazing things. I mean, I think going into Photoshop and using their generative expand tool is quite powerful. You can actually use, as I say, they aggregate the different models. So Google's Nano Banana, you can use it within Photoshop as well.
Okay.
So I still very much use it, but very specific for very specific tasks, you know?
Okay, got you. Okay. That's super interesting. You just touched on the topic of learning and kind of like, training on content. Like, where do you stand on that? I know you did mention that you're doing a lot of stuff like on the local in terms of like your own systems, and obviously that adds that layer of protection. Like, where do you stand in terms of content being kind of like open to the ecosystem, similar to like open source and technology, right? Versus content creators being very protective. Musicians are quite similar of their content and for the right reasons. Like, where do you stand on that in terms of putting your content out there, and other kind of like tools being able to like learn and train off of kind of like what you're...
I think I don't mind training right on the world, like, you know, which is what these models do. They train on the world. I don't mind it because it's something that let's not pretend that ideas come from nowhere. Do you know what I mean? It's like we copy each other. It's just that we transform it. It's like you learn that bit from there, that bit from there, that bit from there, and then the thing that is you is that little bit that's you that, you know, adjusts, that tweaks this idea that you got from there and that idea that you got from there and brings it together to be you.
Yeah.
So I feel like AI just accelerates that, you know. And a lot of the stuff that it's trained on is public stuff. I mean, if it's not, then yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that. But if it's public, literally, if it's something that's public, then it's public.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
you know. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm in two minds about it. In order to be creative, I ignore the potential dangers of I turn a blind eye to it. Although I'm aware that there are some crazy uses. You know, there's some bad ways that you can use AI. But I prefer to look at the positive side of it.
You. Yeah, I'm in a similar kind of like vein on that as well. What's the plans for OnGen? Like, what future projects are you working on that you can speak about, and kind of like how do you intend on using kind of like some of these tools that you're kind of like using now?
So I'm speaking to a couple of different potential distributors for some content ideas that I have. One of them being the late 1900s. So
this is your own stories that you're coming up with and you're scripting
exactly.
To kind of like look at distribution avenues. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So original IP. So yeah, there are a couple of different series ideas that I'm speaking to potential distributors over. That's
and
one.
Are these like what screen are these? Is there short form content series or kind of like
series,
films?
Short form series content.
Okay.
Short form serialized content. And as well as, you know, developing IP to sell to distributors, I'm also developing my own platform as well. So the idea is, you know, just selling to these distributors. It's still pick me. You know, it's still, hey, here's this thing, like, you know. But I there's only so long that I'm going to do that for, you know. Yeah. So I'm developing my own platform as well. You know, a video on demand platform is something that I'm working on.
So you want to go direct to consumer,
exactly,
pretty much, yeah.
Exactly, and I think it's such a great time to do it, you know, because the power's coming back into the hands of the creators. You know, you've seen so many creators being successful on either YouTube or TikTok or wherever, and then developing some kind of a business around that, or a platform around that. You know, some of them, like for instance the Sidemen, for instance, they've got their own app that you can download on the various video on demand screens. So that is the direction that I'm moving in as well.
So that's interesting. It's another positive aspect of the tools enabling you to do that, right? This advancement in technology as a counter argument to the negative kind of like opinions and thoughts around that, right? Because yeah, you wouldn't have been able to. Well, you could still create your own video on demand platform, but the ability for you to churn out content would be a lot slower, right? And you'd seek funding, etc. There's a whole load of blockers that people have experienced
Absolutely.
historically.
Absolutely. I see that mainly. I see these tools as access. You know, there are just so many things that I just would not have been able to do without these tools, and now I can. I don't have to ask for permission. I just go and make it.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that it's so liberating in terms of self discovery, in terms of getting your idea across to somebody as well. Like instead of writing a pitch deck with words and images where somebody's going to say, "Oh, that's nice," and then I can create a 30-second sample,
Yeah.
and then they can say, "Oh, I get it."
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm finding that I'm winning a lot more jobs just because I'm saying, "Here you go."
It's there, it's visual, it's in their
right
face.
there.
This is what I've done already. It's like nearly there to completion rather than a big script that they've kind of like not going to read through. And
exactly, and that whole empowering thing works for the. I mean, the world is just changing, man. It's like marketing is changing in general. People are more people are wanting to own their own audience.
Yeah.
You know, so going direct is so possible now, and having that understanding of digital marketing, so being creative, and then having that understanding of digital marketing is becoming so much more important, and it's because the distributors. They've been ripping us off for years, man. You know what I mean? It's a complete rip-off. It's like whatever industry you're in, whether it's music or whether it's film, you have these distributors who will take the chunk of it. If they give you money up front, you know, that's all you're getting basically a lot of the times, and then your IP goes to them. But nowadays, you know, you can build your audience. Like literally, you can start off slow and say, all right, well, you know, it costs me, you know, £1 a day to market, but I can convert. If I can convert £1 a day, I don't know, man. It's
the unit economics are completely different now, right? You've got a lot of avenues to go down, and
absolutely,
yeah, the opportunity and scope. Out of interest, in terms of like maintaining creativity, the characters in your stories, are you leveraging like real characters in their voices in terms of like the kids that are in it and the adults? Like, what's your
the only
aim there?
human voice is my voice in there. So I've done a bit of performance capture.
Yeah.
So it'll be me speaking in a certain voice, and then I'll use AI to convert it to another voice, and it'll be me performing the actions, and I'll use AI to convert that. So I'm using that. But what I would love to do is to work with actors and comedians, work with other writers. You know, so the way I want to develop the late 1900s series is to have some writers' rooms and have comedians come in. We experiment together, bring it to life, and then get an actor to come in and then play certain parts. You know, so and it's possible you can do that now. And for the performance capture. And transfer that to AI. But the late 1900s has a bit of that, but it's mainly me and AI, to be honest with you.
Incredible. Hopefully we can fuse a bit of the clips into this just to bring it to life, like what we're speaking about, and obviously we'll include some links out of this interview as well. In terms of how you envision the future of the industry and kind of like the tools and features, like what would be your top asks in terms of what is going to be developed and how it's going to be used? Like what's your vision there?
So the tools are getting so much better. So I envision that, when it comes to consistency, as you said, I think that is on its way. It's already better than it was like a year ago, right? So I envision that will improve. I imagine that prompt adherence will improve. So when you use a prompt to tell it to do this, it's sticking to what you asked it to do. I imagine that will improve as well. I imagine that the tools that we use to interact with AI will also improve because, there are so many different ways that you can interact with it, and all of these platforms and model developers are creating ways to interact with it. But I think voice is going to become a really important part of it. I've already started to experiment with it, and I'm finding that it's actually life changing. Like for me,
Really?
which sounds extreme, but for instance, okay, there's a tool that I use called Whisperflow, right? And Whisperflow allows you to essentially anywhere that you can write text on your computer, you can speak there, basically, right? So if it's got a text field, you can use Whisperflow there. You can press a button on your computer, it activates this dictation transcription tool, and then you speak, right? And that changes the way that you interact with, it changes the way you communicate. When you're typing, you're using a different part of your brain. You're editing before the words come out. There's a gap between your thought and the idea coming out, right? And then some editing takes place. So it might not be your full idea. However, when you speak, you're not editing. It's just coming out. It's just coming out. And I found that when I was when I was trying to get an idea across to a large language model, for instance, and I was using this tool as opposed to typing, like I said a lot more and I got a lot more out, and I just didn't edit. I got the full thing out. And what's great about a tool like Whisperflow is that it can understand your intent as well. So when you're speaking in natural language, there's a lot of repetition that you do. There's a lot of ums and ahs and pauses, and it will still know that, okay, he just made a list just there and he just repeated that twice. So I'm just going to, say it once. So the end prompt that comes out that you end up giving to LLM is already slightly polished. And then taking that thought into an LLM that you want it to improve your thought, for instance. So this is, you can speak to LLM and say, so something I do on a daily basis I'll say, here's the ideas that I have to an AI. Could you order my thoughts and just put it in simple form for me? And I think, so that's something that's changed in me that is life changing. And I think that in the future, more ways to interact with technology and get your ideas across are going to, they'll come about, and what it's going to do is you're going to see new forms of content, new voices, because it's just more accessible, People are going to be using it in so many different ways. I feel like when it comes to filmmaking, for instance, new genres will arise, and new people will map new emotions to shots, for instance. Before, slow motion was only accessible to a certain type of audience, and then you would typically map the slow motion shot to that emotion. But then people have access to that now. So now there's somebody who is going to map it to something else, and they'll be like, oh, I've never seen slow motion used for that thing. And I think now that people have access to generate any kind of video or sound, I haven't even talked about sound, but anyway, like I feel like we're going to learn. There are going to be so many more voices that come through, so many more storytelling genres that come through. But anyway, I could talk about this forever. But yeah,
I love that point you said about accessibility. That's a huge point in terms of that counter argument to the negative points about technology. That person in the middle of nowhere that's kind of like, in their thoughts, and they don't have a network, they don't have access to, their uncle's a big director or whatever it might be, they now have the ability to bring their thoughts to life, right? I'm definitely going to check out Whisperflow. It sounds super interesting. That additional step that you just mentioned in terms of for typing, again, a mechanical interface, and then kind of like that two-step chain, kind of like how things are kind of lost in there. That was like really interesting. So like, I'll definitely look at that. But yeah, the accessibility point is the key point, I think,
humongous,
for sure, with this whole topic.
Humongous.
In terms of lowering that barrier. And we speak about that lowering barrier, open up to a larger audience, 4K, slow motion, super expensive. Like you were just saying, yeah, I know that with my limited film experience. But yeah, that's super interesting. In terms of the future of the content you're going to be creating, you did mention like short stories. Are you going to be working on any film, like longer form stuff?
I eventually will. I eventually will. Right now, the only longer form stuff that I'm talking about is documentary. So it's hybrid actually. So it's AI mixed with just live action content. So that's the only long form that I'm talking about now. The long term goal is, in fact, it's hybrid. I'm still a traditional filmmaker at heart, and I feel like in order to, there's some ideas that I have that are quite big. and AI is not going to cut it at where it is at the moment. So I think hybrid, incorporating traditional visual effects and live action as well as AI. I feel like that is going to be my sweet spot. Yeah.
Incredible. Loads of learnings that we've captured there. We really appreciate you kind of like sharing like everything that you've spoken about, from the technology, the different LLMs that you use, and you're kind of like really deep as a kind of professional in this journey. Where can people find your content, and where can they kind of like engage with you?
So on socials, I'm at Ikenna Mokwe, and at Ongen as well.
Ongen,
yeah.
Ikenna Mokwe, that's what we
At
call
Ongen UK and at Ikenna Mokwe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody go out, and kind of obviously we'll include a link in the description to all of your content. But yeah, we appreciate you coming on FUTR Included and telling everyone about what you do.
Cool, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.